Hey guys, did I ever tell you about my Uncle Stitch?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, he's a hippie, like bona fide hippie, but he's not like your typical hippie.
I dislike him already.
He's a he's a polygamist hippie. So he has lots and lots of wives, so many that he has to count them from time to time. And when he counts them, he points at him and says, 1 Mrs. Hippie, 2 Mrs. Hippie, 3 Mrs. Hippie. Shoot me now.
I'm trying, but you keep moving.
That was so terrible. So bad. Does it take a long time to count them?
Yeah.
About a second each.
About a second each. About a second.
So I don't know if we have a show because nothing really happened last week.
It's been
talking about.
It's been so peaceful
so
and quiet.
It's
the
so
airports
quiet.
are just
no airlines.
so calm.
Yeah, everything is working smoothly.
Banking.
It's all fine.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, we'll get to the CrowdStrike stuff after the break, but first we have a couple more stories that are worth mentioning. So let's do this one from Bleeping Computer. Critical Cisco bug lets hackers add root users on SEG devices. Those are security email gateway appliances.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
With having, just extra users.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this and this one, I always find it interesting when embedded devices have these types of flaws because, you take a Cisco device, you take a router, a switch, a firewall, whatever, you pretty much control the entire operating system. Like you control everything on that box.
Yeah.
It's not like a Windows computer is a crazy wasteland of crap sometimes, right? It's
absolutely
like you install apps, you remove apps, there's malware, they're like
backward compatibility, all these things.
Yeah.
There's oh my God.
And it has a built-in slow down over time feature.
Your Windows computer is probably the worst neighborhood on the internet. Like as you're going through.
It's the lowest common denominator. That's what it is. Everybody needs to placate the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But then take a look at these devices. Like we've seen Barracuda mail gateways have issues. We've seen tons of Cisco devices. We've seen Soho routers this year. Actually, one of the biggest breaches was Soho routers this year, the small office, home office routers. And it always blows my mind that these types of devices get compromised because it's like you literally had control over everything.
Yeah.
Right.
The whole thing. You have one job. I asked you to do one thing. Right? Yeah. And you don't have users installing random apps and you don't have and you couldn't even do the one thing I asked you to do. But, I'm off my soapbox.
So when you're in a meeting, if you're in a company that makes these things and you're in a meeting and someone says, well, maybe we should leave that in case we need it later, yell. Just stand up and hit them as hard as you can.
Just slap them open-handed right across the face.
Smack.
I'd say closed hand is better, but
I'm trying to not do damage, right?
The laws will vary.
You look at them and say, you shut your mouth when you're talking to us.
Yeah.
So this vulnerability is due to improper handling of email attachments. When file analysis, right? So it takes the files and analyzes them to see if there's anything nasty in there. And content filters are enabled. A successful exploit could allow attackers to replace any file on the underlying operating system.
Jeez.
Right. So this could cause crashes, etc. My guess is this is a very similar exploit to zip slipping. Do you guys remember the zip slipping from last year?
Only that it was a dance that your kids did, and they tried to teach it to you, but you couldn't get it until they sprayed water on the floor, and then it was much easier for your old ass.
Isn't that what happened with Justin Timberlake?
Oh my God, that's a different.
That was a nip slip.
Yeah, as a little. I'm sorry, my bad.
One letter off.
My old ears didn't hear the Z. Zip slipping. To bring it back to the PG show.
I didn't say anything wrong.
Where there were compression utilities out there, and if I were to custom make a zip file. And when you put a document in a zip file, it can have the original directory structure from where the files came from.
Right.
Well, you do have a way of actually putting files into a zip saying, oh, this came from .. boot.ini, right? And when you unzip it, it will now unzip it all the way back to the root drive and replace the boot INI. And this is where compression utilities went, oh, wow, we didn't think you could actually do that. Let us make sure that you can only unzip in the current directory or lower.
In your current directory, right, or lower.
So it's almost a directory traversal bug, kind of.
Yeah.
This feels very similar, where I might be able to add an attachment that has, when it's pulled down, its name is ... bringing me back out to the root / shadow, right? Or /etc/shadow /etc/passwd. And if I replace those two files, well, now I can gain root level access to the system.
That's my rapper name now.
Files.
That's my rapper name.
It's Etsy shadow. / You like a DJ? Get that on a nice dubstep mix.
You put a beat to that and you got a song.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start making nerd techno.
Nerd rap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Create a new genre.
Right.
White nerd rap.
I think that's what we're doing right now.
Didn't Vanilla Ice do that?
Old white guy nerd rap.
Nerd rap. Back in my day.
I'm sorry. We have so much to talk about, and here I am making jokes. What's wrong with me?
So, needless to say, listen,
we don't have
if you're running their security email gateway, go out and make sure you patch it.
Yes.
There's a risk of somebody sending you email and causing all sorts of problems.
Patchity patch. All right, our second story from cybernews.com. Biggest ever leak of digital pirates, 10 million exposed by Z Library copycat. Z Library is an open source library of ebooks, right? And this is one that is a copycat, so they called it zlib. See what they did there?
Oh.
And instead of, doing all the things that Z Library does, they just took your information and gave it away to other people.
Aww.
Well, they took away the information of people who are trying to steal intellectual property of people who write books.
Yeah, so it's kind of a Robin Hood thing, maybe. I don't know.
Robin Hoods. They were robbing the hoods.
I don't know. Yeah, you always not sure who to feel bad for, and maybe the artist, right? The artist who wrote the book. Let's feel bad for them.
It says the threat actors accidentally leaked the names Bitcoin and
yeah. Okay.
10 million people.
So if you're going to a place to download illicit books,
stolen stuff,
why would you give them a Bitcoin address, a Monero address? What the?
Yeah.
Well, listen. Okay, so I could see maybe you have to pay a subscription. Like, hey, we'll give you access to every ebook on the planet, and it's $10 a year, right? And you obviously don't want to pay from your debit card, so maybe you use Monero, Bitcoin, or whatever. I get that.
You thought this through.
However, listen. In our business, there are plenty of times we have to dig through the seedier side of the internet. And I can tell you one of the things I absolutely do not do is go to the dark web forums, hacker forums, and sign up with Dwayne LaFlot, right? Like, all of the details are entirely made up. I have a throwaway Bitcoin wallet. I have a throwaway usernames and passwords that I'm never going to use again.
And if you didn't have the brains to obfuscate your personal data, you get what you deserve, right?
Right. So you just want to slap everybody involved in this particular incident. So they say,
it's a lot of slaps.
Key takeaways. The leaked database belongs to zlib, a malicious Z library that ranks at the top of Google searches. Threat actors accidentally leaked usernames, emails, passwords, Bitcoin wallet addresses, Monero wallet addresses, and much, much more for 9,761,948 users. So yeah, that's not really great.
But the leak is the second thing. The first thing is that these people set up this site to scam the pirates.
Yeah.
Right? So then they leak the pirates' information. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, like I said, there again, you never know who to feel bad for, really. I think it's just the artist who made the books.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so the site was discovered, it was a phishing site that resembled the actual Z Library, which I can only assume is a place that real stolen books are, as opposed to this site, which is fake stolen book. I don't know. All this is just terrible. Don't do drugs, kids.
If you scroll down in the article, it says, what should users do? zlib users should expect that the exposed data will likely be used by authorities, cybersecurity researchers, cyber criminals, and Dwayne.
Yeah, what? Yeah, it says it right there.
You're being redundant.
Yeah.
What should users do? Slap yourself.
What it also does is it de-anonymizes a lot of those. So if you went to a site and you bought something illicit with the same Bitcoin or Monero wallet, now it links back to you potentially.
They're on to you.
And there's definitely people who followed Dwayne's expert advice and did not use their real names, but some people did. There's definitely people in there that gave their, and I would be shocked if somebody didn't use their real work address.
Yeah. Okay. First off, I will tell you, if you do use a fake name on anything associated with money, which is potentially Bitcoin and Monero, which you have to pay taxes on, that may actually be a federal crime. Just throwing that out there. That being said, use throwaway names in Bitcoin wallets.
Okay.
Okay, Dwayne, I'll bite. How do you get the Bitcoin in without it being traced to you?
Really? You're going to ask him to reveal that?
I'm glad you asked, children.
Should we cue the music?
Well,
just be quiet, Dwayne.
I will not divulge.
Thank you.
Okay, here's the deal.
No, don't.
All right, I won't divulge it.
Don't. All
there
right,
are ways.
So let's talk about this next one from Bleeping Computer. Patrick, what's the name of this company that's involved in it?
Are you talking about Docker?
Yeah, how do you spell that?
DOCKER.
And say it again?
Docker.
Yeah.
It's not.
I didn't say it right the first time. I said it like I was in California.
It's not Docker?
Docker.
So it's not quite DOAKA, right? Docker?
No, I spell right.
DAWK.
Yeah, DAWK.
Docker. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
K.
Those things, Patrick, those things on your house that catch the rain and they go around the eaves of your roof. What are those called?
Gutters.
Guddiz, right? Gutters.
Look, we spell. We just know how to pronounce the letters better than you.
And those panes of glass that you put up in the wintertime to cover your screens, what do you call those?
Storm windows?
Stom, STAWM.
Storm windows.
Windus, WINDIS.
Yeah, that's right.
Stom Windus.
You're trying to provoke the Boston accent in me.
Yeah, it's not.
It was beaten out of me in the military to a high degree.
Not quite as bad as I thought it would be. All right, so the real
I'm
story.
enunciating.
Enunciate.
What's funny is when you add an R where there was none, like idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know people that do that.
I do that. It's always been an idea.
Where did that R come from?
All right, so DACA fixes critical 5-year-old authentication bypass flaw.
Well, eventually they got to it.
If DACA has a 5-year-old flaw,
is DACA 5 years old? It feels like it's only about 4.5 years old.
Is it? But is it really a 0 day?
If no one has published it, then yes.
Yep, absolutely.
If it was unknown in the wider world, that it's very possible that some 3-letter agencies or some hacker groups knew about it and have been exploiting it and now ruining the day that someone discovered it.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't matter how long, you can be a 20-year-old 0 day. In fact, I guarantee.
Oh yeah, there are. Take a look at a lot of the sudo edit bugs that have been around for 20 years.
Forever. Until they're discovered, they're 0 days.
Okay. So one of the things I love about this particular bug, it's an off bypass. Okay. First off, remember last week we were talking about APIs?
Yeah.
And how a lot of people assume nobody can call a back-end API. It just can't happen. Only my app can, whatever. So this is an API issue, right? So off Z bypass a privilege escalation, an attacker could exploit a bypass using an API request with a content length set to 0.
Wow.
So when you make a web request to an API, you have all of the normal HTTP headers out there, right? Refer and all the other good stuff. If you set your content length to 0, apparently this would just authenticate you. Now, this was discovered back in 2019 and fixed.
Wow.
Apparently, they didn't actually apply that fix to any of the newer versions of the Docker engine.
So it's regression.
It's the same thing we were seeing with regression, right? The SSH bug, where it was fixed in the past, just nobody actually did any regression testing on the newer versions to make sure it stayed fixed, which is crazy.
Wow.
Is that a thing anymore, Carl? Listen, I don't write production software anymore. I only break production software and make AIs cry. That's my job now. Is regression testing a thing? Like, is that still in the process? Okay.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I was old.
Except in CrowdStrike.
Did you mean current testing or regression testing? I'm confused.
Any testing at all.
Hey, now you're getting ahead of yourself. We have a break to do here.
So moral of the story, if you are running a Docker engine version 27.0.3 or earlier, alongside their authorization plugin for access control, you'll want to go patch.
And on that note, let's pause here for a brief moment for these very important messages. And we're back. It's Security This Week. I'm Carl Franklin with Patrick Hines and Dwayne LaFlotte. And if you don't want to hear any ads, you can become a patron. Just go to patreon.securitythisweek.com. For $5 a month, you can get a feed that has no ads.
And for those people who are patrons, we appreciate you.
Yes, we appreciate you very much.
And we're protecting you on the internet.
And
absolutely,
you won't see us, but...
And if you don't want to hear the word CrowdStrike 89 times, stop listening now.
Just stop listening right now, because that's what the rest of the show is dedicated to.
CrowdStrike.
All right, so CrowdStrike. Now, so many people have freaked out about this because they think, oh, my computer at home is going to blue screen and, and you should turn off your Windows computers and blah, blah, blah. So it didn't affect your home PC. It didn't affect anybody but company
unless you have
PCs.
State of the art and you've somehow bought an enterprise endpoint solution.
Unless you get $1 million a year you're throwing away on software to protect your PC.
Right. I don't think CrowdStrike sells a user license.
No.
Yeah, so it was basically company PCs. They're mostly running in VMs in the cloud, right? And so these PCs are running this software. And the difference between this software and stuff you would run is that, when you install a video driver or something, like you have to go through this whole process, and probably it means you have to reboot your system because it's running at a really low level on your computer. This low level is called kernel mode. And you have kernel mode, which is ring 0 of the processor, they call it, like the inner circle. And then the outer circle is user mode, and that's where all your programs run. But in kernel mode, code has to be really fast, really efficient, and if there's ever any problems, that's when you get a blue screen. So why did this happen with CrowdStrike? Well, it happened because they kind of took a shortcut in updating their drivers. Whenever you have a new driver, right, that comes out, it has to go through a certification process. It has to be thoroughly tested, even by Microsoft. Microsoft has a lab where they have to test your drivers and make sure they want to see the source code. Yeah. And so what these guys did, for this one product, instead of doing that, they just updated these files that the driver reads, and those files are downloaded from the internet, and they have information on stuff that this filter should do. And apparently some code was included in one of those files, and driver's like, oh, that's code. I'm just going to run it. And that completely bypasses the certification process, and some bad code ran, and poof, blue screens all over the world.
So back in a prior life, Dwayne and I have both been to Plugfests at Microsoft and watched the process. And they literally will randomly pair off vendors with their filter drivers, and make them run on the same box to see if they conflict with other drivers.
Yep.
It's a very rigorous process. And so what you're saying is they've decided, they being CrowdStrike, that they would kind of skip over some of this by saying, yeah, we're going to do that with our base driver, but our base driver is going to be able to take an input file so that it can be flexible, so it can be updated on the fly without having to get re-registered, recertified. What could go wrong?
Yeah. Well,
the banks could shut down.
Yeah, first
the
off,
airlines could shut down.
8.5 million PCs crashed overnight.
There's a reason why they have this process.
I don't know if you guys are fans of the movie Hackers. I love Hackers, Sneakers. I love all those movies. Dave Murphy couldn't touch a computer till he was 18 when he crashed 1,507 systems. I'm just saying,
wow.
I don't think CrowdStrike should be able to touch a computer until they're 18. I'm throwing that out there.
That's right. 18 years from now.
It's like Oliver Wendell Jones in his bedroom. His father comes in with Spam on his head and bananas in his nose and says, "Son, have you heard of this subliminal messaging?" He says, "Yeah, Pop." He says, "You wouldn't happen to be into that and, doing any subliminal messages on televisions, right? Like, I want to put Spam on my head and bananas in my nose? Now stay serious, son." Yeah.
So I think this is another aspect of the supply chain thing. You need to know, like the CTO of a company that's using CrowdStrike, in the process of acquiring that tool, or CISO, should have asked the question, okay, so how do you get around the fact that you've got to update your stuff fast, but it has to be approved by Microsoft? What happens if you have a 0-day, what do we do? Do we have a way to shut off your solution briefly? Do we have a way? And if they said something like, "Oh, we have a way to circumvent that because we just feed it a configuration file," that's a red flag. That means that because the damage you would get from a ransomware is probably more than the damage a lot of these companies suffered, but not much more.
Mm.
Here's what I would like to interject on CrowdStrike's behalf. First off, their promise to you, dear customer, was that they would keep your computer safe. And frankly, nobody can break into your computer if it's not online. So
when it's blue screened, it is absolutely safe.
I think they met.
Absolutely.
I think they met their SLA. I'm almost positive. But secondly, what's also interesting here is, first off, it does outline. There's so many interesting sort of aspects here. To no event like this ever goes unexploited. Right. So we say, well, this wasn't an attack. CrowdStrike updated a driver and they shouldn't have, and it caused a blue screen, etc. Well, now hackers know exactly which companies are running CrowdStrike. So if I want to target one of these airlines, I want to target one of these banks, I know the software they're running, which gives me a leg up. So at this point now I can write my custom malware targeted to bypass CrowdStrike. That's number one. Number two,
you can send phishing to their staff that says, "Hey, this is a message from CrowdStrike," and you know that it's a product they use.
Wait, I love that hacker advice. Not only could you, but they did.
Yeah.
There is massive reports of hackers calling up companies and saying, "Oh my God, we're CrowdStrike. We apologize. We're here to help. Let's get you back in your systems."
I'm just glad you said they did and not we did. That's all I care about.
So we'll have a link to that. Threat actors attempted to capitalize on a CrowdStrike incident, and that's a whole other story. But I want to point out this other one, that the CEO of CrowdStrike, and he's the founder, George Kurtz. You might have remembered his name because
sounds familiar.
Apocalypse Now?
In 2010, in 2010, he was the CEO of McAfee or whatever it was. They had a colossal glitch with Windows XP that took down a good part of the internet.
Yeah. Crashes 10,000.
He was the CTO.
Computer. Yeah, tens of thousands of computers. Yeah.
Right. So this isn't his first rodeo, and I'll post that link also.
No, but honestly, listen, at McAfee, he crashed tens of thousands of computers. At CrowdStrike, he crashed 8.5 million. He's going up
on his way
career.
up.
Yeah. Honestly,
that's right.
Yeah. Maybe he can't touch a computer till he's 18. Maybe that's what we do.
Well, we know when the aliens come, it's not going to be. We're going to send him up in the UFO with Will Smith to infect the alien system.
Exactly, to crash a couple systems. Hey, man, you can just go over and touch some things.
All right, so there were some other stories associated with this. On July 19th, there was a story, CrowdStrike deploys fix for issue causing global tech outage. However, the problem isn't, so it's not something that you can just say everybody patch, right?
No.
They have to be fixed by hand.
I want to address that, though. Because we here at Security This Week say this all the time. We say, go up, patch, right? Better to patch than to not patch. And in this is the worst case scenario.
Yep.
Right? So if you survived this, where, you were off for maybe 24 hours and it was painful and whatnot, there's no reason why you shouldn't always patch. So I still am a proponent of patching, because I've had people come up to me and go, "Hey, Dwayne, you say patch the moment a patch comes out." And we did that. We auto patched and we were down for a while.
Well,
I get
actually,
that.
let's say something here. This was not an optional patch. You had no way to stop this patch. It came down automatically because of the nature of the patch and the level.
No, agreed. But like for Windows, I set my systems to auto patch. CrowdStrike, I'd set my system to auto patch. I would just say, hey, I don't want to have to remember to do it. Let's just auto patch it. Although there are a few systems out there, especially EDRs, where you can say, don't apply the most current patch until it's been out for 10 days. That might be an option too. But I still am a big proponent of you should go patch. You should auto patch. You should make sure your systems are up to date. And sometimes, it's going to burn you, but more often than not, it's going to save you. That's my message there.
Yep. There it is.
Well, actually, let's talk about, since you said that, let's talk about the process. So this is a device driver. The system won't boot. Yeah. The system will not boot with this problem in place.
Yeah.
So what do you have to have on hand in order to do it? Typically, you have to have
a USB stick.
You have to have a bunch of things on hand.
Pulsar security. No. So Microsoft did. Oh my God. Microsoft did just release this week a tool that you can push down to a USB stick that will.
They were currently keeping him captive. And they released him.
It's a tool. Who will fix all your PCs? No, so you can push it down to a USB stick. You can boot to it, and it automatically removes the driver.
That's good.
Sys, etc., and reboots it and does that sort of
stuff.
But imagine this also. The way to fix, so Patrick's right. This is a kernel level driver. It boots before Windows. So when it crashed Windows tried to reboot, and this loaded first before Windows, which then crashed Windows, forced it to reboot, which then this loaded first, so on and so forth. So you're in this boot loop, right?
Yep.
And the only way to fix it was to drop to safe mode, and delete the sys file.
Jeez.
That was the update. Now that's a pain in the butt in and of itself, because imagine cloud servers. Dropping into safe mode, super hard to do. Airport terminals, hard to do. The airport TVs, hard to do, right?
There's a YouTube video that I linked to here where the guy has pictures, and if you were flying on that day, you know how they show the big screens of things that are going in? They were all blue screens, giant blue screens above your head as you're walking through a crowded airport, and the flights are all grounded because you can't go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, so bad. So not only was it this, however many, 8 million computers, is that what you said?
8.5. Yeah.
8.5 million computers, but millions and millions and millions of people affected because of these, maybe even over 1 billion, who knows?
Now let's assume some of those computers were configured to be hyper secure because they have CrowdStrike. They probably had BitLocker. So for those of you who don't know, BitLocker is a drive level encryption.
Yeah.
So you don't boot into safe mode. You don't get access to the drive. The drive is encrypted. So now what you need to do is boot into safe mode and supply the 32 character BitLocker key,
which everyone memorizes,
to unlock that individual drive.
It's in BitLocker.txt in my documents folder.
Which is now encrypted.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you had to supply this BitLocker key to even gain access to the drive and then go delete. It was, dude, I'm glad I'm not in IT work. I'm just putting it that way. Yeah. It was a nightmare.
I was talking to a U.S. government agency yesterday, and we were talking about cyber and the things that people need to classify as their cyber workforce and things like that. It was a good conversation. It was kind of boring. But one of the things that came up that was kind of surprising to them was that the backup administrators and the backup processes is part of your cybersecurity posture. Because if you can't recover, you can't. And oh, by the way, I asked them to make it illegal to pay a ransom. They said they'd think about it.
Said they'd think about it. We'll think about it.
So
I was talking to the Pope yesterday, and he said, "Carl, I'm going to give you some advice. Don't ever name drop."
Actually, what the Pope really said is, I was talking to Bono, and we said that we should never name drop. That's the only person that the Pope would name drop on Bono was here not too long ago. But backups are so critical, and having that key on hand, who's going to have that? If you ran to a Fortune 500 company and said, I need I need the key to this system. Who would have that? Only the backup system administrator. If you're lucky. Right?
If you're lucky.
And so that is part of your cyber workforce. It's part of your cyber systems. And if you're not including backup and restore in part of your planning, you're missing the boat.
Yeah.
Agreed 100%.
Yep. All right. So,
how did we get the Pope into this show?
That's right? And Bono.
So for the coup de grace, CrowdStrike blames test software for taking down 8.5
Did they
million.
take
What is
the
this,
Shaggy
Senator
response?
Instead, oh no, the test software did it.
Actually, I think they blame Senator Menendez's wife for causing the problem.
That went over my head,
terrible.
but must be funny to
Senator
some.
Menendez got tried for taking bribes, and he blamed his wife as part of his defense.
Oh, okay.
So they're still happily married.
Well, one of them is anyway. So yeah, they published a post-incident review with a buggy update. It published that took down 8.5 million Windows machines. It blames a bug in test software for not properly validating the content update that was pushed out to millions of machines on Friday. So yeah. Oh yes, we pushed it out, but the test software didn't catch it.
Well,
right.
How in God's name does that process not include Bob installing it on a machine?
Right.
Or 10 machines and saying, yeah, this works.
Yeah, it didn't crash.
I mean, over automation is a problem too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want to dig more into this. So I part of the hacker mentality is you see something like this and you see opportunities, right? So for example, if this is running, anytime I gain access to a system as an administrator, I want to be able to sort of set up shop, right? So I hack into a computer. I want to get as high as I possibly can as an administrator. And now I want to set up shop, which means removing things like ADRs, like endpoint detection.
Right.
Now, CrowdStrike and CN360 and all those other sort of EDRs are really hard to get rid of because they know that if a hacker gains access to the system, they're going to try and remove them. If I analyze this process, is it possible now, I'm wondering, if I could replace one of those files, because I'm an administrator, I have access to the drive.
And not crash the box, but render it moot.
Exactly. Right. So have either a driver that will load that does nothing, right? Never passes anything along as a mini filter, or, so I think we're going to start to see a lot of advanced persistent threat actors look at this a little bit closer and go, okay, how can I exploit this?
I was going to save this till later to another show. But there's been reports, valid, substantiated reports of North Koreans applying for IT jobs that are remote and basically taking the salary, embedding themselves as a spy implant, and they're applying to security companies. I'm not going to reveal the name of the security company I know of, but they caught it. But they actually hired this person, shipped him his laptop. It was not sent to his house. It was sent to a place where he remoted into. And the first thing he started doing was uploading malware, and he finally stopped responding, and it turned out that he was from North Korea.
Oof.
Wow.
So if you could also see the kind of organization like CrowdStrike being targeted by those people, so that when the time is right, they can shut down our system. So imagine if 8 million computers coincided with a cyber attack. It would be a very effective compounder of a cyber attack.
Right.
Mm.
Well, I guess that's all we can say about that, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm sure we could say more, but we'd go into hours.
Hours.
And who wants to listen to that?
All right. Well, have a good week. And hopefully next week will be just as much fun as this one was.
No, I hope not. I'm flying tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
See you guys later.
All right,
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.